On this week's episode of Inside Outside Innovation, we sit down with Monica Rozenfeld and Lina Bedi, co-founders of the incubator Her Product Lab. On this episode, we talk about opportunities and barriers for women in the product development space and their new 7-week incubator program designed to help women launch and grow new product initiatives. Let's get started. Inside Outside Innovation is the podcast that brings you the best and the brightest in the world of startups and innovation. I'm your host, Brian Ardinger, founder of InsideOutside.io, a provider of research, events, and consulting services that help innovators and entrepreneurs build better products, launch new ideas, and compete in a world of change and disruption. Each week, we'll give you a front row seat to the latest thinking, tools, tactics, and trends in collaborative innovation. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. I'm your host, Brian Ardinger, and as always, we have another amazing guest. In fact, we have two amazing guests today, Monica Rozenfeld and Lina Bedi. They are co-founders of a new project and a new venture called Her Product Lab. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. We're so excited to be here.
Very exciting.
Monica, you and I met a couple years ago. I had a chance to come up to Milwaukee for the Fall X Experiment Conference last year and do some podcasts there. And I wanted to bring you on the show to talk about this new venture that you've spun up and some of the changes that you've seen over the last several months in spinning up this particular project. I know we actually had this conversation pre-COVID, but we wanted to postpone it because a lot of things have changed. So tell us about what Her Product Lab is, and then we'll go into how it came to be.
Thank you for that intro. In my day job, I was organizing events for product managers, and I was in the New York office. We have a New York office and a Milwaukee office. In the New York office, there was a lot of conversation about how there really isn't a community for women in product. You see a big presence out on the West Coast advancing women in product. They have done a phenomenal job of really elevating women in their careers, getting them into the mid-level and leadership roles out there. And we weren't seeing so much of that even in New York City, looking into other cities like Chicago, DC, Atlanta. Our goal when we had started out late last year is let's have these summits. We'll bring women together. We'll have women on the stage talking about their careers. How do they move into director roles? How to build better products. It was really incredible because only in 2 or 3 weeks' time after coming up with this concept and connecting with Lina, who's also very interested in the space, we had a website, tickets were live. We had something like 20 presenters right off the bat. And it was one of the easiest events I ever put together because there was so much excitement around it. So the date of our first summit, March 26th, New York City, same week as lockdown. I actually did this really somber activity where I walked over to where our venue is. I live not too far from there. And everything's just boarded up, no people on the street. And in another universe, there would be 200 people in this room and we'd all be super engaged in talking about product development. So it was a really crazy experience for us. But I think the other thing that we saw was nobody was asking for a refund. Everyone wanted to know when the date was going to be changed. We had this really loyal community that wanted to be part of this. And so we were trying to think of, well, how do we keep everyone engaged without being able to have in-person events? And so we started with some of the virtual events, and that led us to think of this concept of a virtual incubator, which, by the way, I'll just add one thing. We wanted to do an incubator as part of our 2-year roadmap. We were thinking like 2022, we'll have an incubator. It'll be really cool. And it'll be New York based. And now it's just virtual and global, which we're really excited about.
It seems that coronavirus has definitely accelerated a lot of the disruption that we were already seeing in the marketplace. And this is just a perfect example of that. So, Lina, maybe you can tell us about yourself and how you got involved in this project.
I was introduced to Monica through a mutual friend, and we were talking about, women supporting other women and how far women can get when they're lifted. And when we think about product management, we were looking at the overall job market growth and product management was and is booming. So the overall job market in the past 2 years increased by around 6%, and product management is 5 times that amount. And then when we dug into the data even more, we see that the majority of women are in entry-level positions. And so our goal was to really create a network community where we can give women access to senior leaders and help mentor them. And, these are a lot of the things that help propel my career forward, and it's a way of paying that forward. And, that was the goal. And even though what we're doing now has shifted because of COVID, that goal still remains the same. Those overarching themes of what we're trying to achieve by connecting women to these leadership roles and giving access to training, those are still the big umbrella that we're operating within.
One of the things that's interesting about her product lab, slightly different than a lot of the other incubators or accelerators out there, is it seems to be focused not just on starting a company, so to speak, but it's really about launching a product and maybe that early stage that turns into a startup. Can you talk a little bit why you decided to start with that emphasis?
When we have a community of product managers, they're already thinking about product ideas all of the time. And they're not necessarily looking to be entrepreneurs, start a company, hire a team, go through the whole process of all that it takes to actually launch a company. But maybe they have a concept that they either want to turn into a side hustle, that they want to even pitch to their current employer. And that's very common. If you're working in, for example, I work in fintech, maybe you have a concept that you think would be really great in that space, and you can sell it to your own leadership even. So it's a very different model. We've talked to so many women in our community who have an idea. And I'm sure, as you know, Brian, a lot of people sit on ideas for a very long time. And sometimes you just need that nudge of a next step. And so our goal is really to help connect them with mentors one-on-one, bring in coaches each week that can help them in each stage of the process. So by the end, they have the option of what they want to do next. None of them have to quit their day jobs. We've created this to be around their full-time schedules. And after 7 weeks, they might say, hey, I really want to pitch this to a VC and turn this into a startup. I really see the vision for it, and I'm ready to commit full time to it. And I think that would be awesome if we see some of that happening. But that's not the goal for everybody. Sometimes people just think, I think this should exist. Nobody else has built it. I want to be the one to build it.
I like that approach a lot. Lina, can you talk about this rise of no coders and ability to spin up product that you might not have been able to do a decade ago without a lot of help? It seems like individuals have a lot more say and ability to experiment and do things than they have in the past. Can you talk a little bit about how some of these new tools and that play into how you're helping people launch product?
The amount of tools that are now available at anyone's fingertips is just mind-blowing. And none of that existed before. And there's so many resources out there. And when we look at our, the 7-week program, these are the things that we would highlight to people going through the program. The first week would be an introduction and pitching the product. Each week would be a different module with classes once a week and, with some homeworks or some takeaways after the session. But each would dive into a different area of expertise. So after the initial product assessment and validating the concept, we would go into design. So looking at UX design principles, how should this be marketed? How should it be designed? Another module would then be like vetting what the product would look like in the marketplace. How is it marketed? What does the price point look like? And so we just go through the different weeks. And like Monica said, ultimately, by the end of it, you hopefully have something that you're ready to pitch with a fully functioning website so that it can be taken to that next level.
I understand you're trying to build out a complete mentor network and have quality speakers and that come present to the people that go through this program. Can you talk a little bit about some of the people you may have on board or some of the mentors that you're bringing in to help?
Luckily, when we started planning out the conference, we had already built relationships with some senior women in the industry who were going to present at our conference. And so for us, that's a great starting point. The relationships are there and we're already familiar with their area of expertise, and they're already bought into the idea of her product lab and the goals that it stands for. And then also, we've been doing a series of office hour sessions on Fridays where we do deep dives into topics such as influencing or how to find a job in a COVID environment. And so the topics have been varied, but we've really furthered our network in terms of experts in the area on different topics from those sessions as well. that's a great starting point as we look at mentors and coaches for the program, since the relationships are already there and it's already a good fit for what we're trying to do.
I think the thing that's kind of surprised me from the get-go of this, and especially now that we're launching the incubator, is how many people are reaching out to us, asking how they can help, how they can promote it. I mean, I had one VC who actually created a banner for this for social media. It's just organically spreading on its own. And when I look at the people who've already applied, either to be an applicant or to be a mentor or coach, I don't know any of these people. And I don't know how they found out about us. And I think that is the most exciting thing, that it's spreading far and wide naturally.
What are some of the other trends that you're seeing or some of the ideas that are being presented to you? What kind of excites you about the next steps for this program?
One thing earlier on, before we even decided to have the conference, is we had done some research with Alpha, and the feedback that we got on this topic in terms of just women wanting support from other women, women looking for mentors, women looking for training outside of the traditional workforce was overwhelmingly positive. And so, that is what really motivates us and gets us excited, because the need is there. And between Monica and myself, we have the resources to be able to pull this together and to be able to help other people that we know have voice, that they're looking for something of this sort, is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add to that, some of the things I'm noticing already, and it's very early on in the process, our deadline for applications is end of the summer, August 28th, is the type of ideas that are coming in are really about helping people. And so when you think of a product, it could really be anything like coming up with another mobile game or whatever. And a lot of the concepts that are coming in are, I struggled with something, or somebody in my family struggled with something. I see a real problem and I want to solve it. And I feel that a lot of the stories are quite emotional. So in our application process, we ask questions like, tell us about yourself. How did you come up with the concept? One of the other questions we have is, what's been holding you back from launching it? And so I think the second piece of what I personally am excited about is really supporting women in a real way, because I think there's one thing to say, here's how to launch a product, and another to address the things that stop us from launching it. With women specifically, and I don't mean to generalize, but it's a conversation that women have quite a bit, struggle with imposter syndrome, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of public speaking. There's all of these other things that kind of prevent us from getting to that point. And so we really do want to focus on those areas as well, either through the mentorship or even bringing in some coaches that can address those issues as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important part. And that was one of the things that intrigued me about your program, is the fact it wasn't just your standard accelerator blocking and tackling of the business side of things, but really tried to address some of the obstacles that entrepreneurs and innovators have at the earliest stages of getting something off the ground. If people want to find out more about the program or about yourself and that, what's the best way to do that?
They can go to our website. It's herproductlab.com. There's a tab for the incubator, and if they're interested in being a coach or mentor, there's an application right there. And you could also email us at info@herproductlab.com as well, and we will respond within 24 hours.
Thank you, Brian, for having us. This is really, really exciting, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Monica, Lina, thank you very much for being on Inside Outside Innovation. Looking forward to seeing what happens of the first batch of folks that finish the program, and we'll have you back on later.
I'm looking forward to that too. Thanks, Brian.
That's it for another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. If you want to learn more about our team, our content, our services, check out insideoutside.io or follow us on Twitter @the IO Podcast or @Ardinger. Until next time, go out and innovate.